Alright guys, it's Scrappy again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Kenny reveals that if you're playing for the LA Thieves this upcoming season, be prepared for some pretty intense internal warfare if there are disagreements. We know that on OpTic, Kenny and Shotzzy not always seeing eye to eye in terms of the way that they wanted to play the game. And Octane reveals a story from a couple of years ago where things got very heated behind the scenes with Kenny and the rest of the team, given that HyDra and Ghosty not seeing eye to eye could have been one of the key reasons why that team blew it up at the end of the season. Is this an issue for Scrappy and HyDra, or could it be the key to the new super team success? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Plenty to get into today. We're going to start here. Battlefield 6 and the Cronus Zen. So you guys probably remember a few years ago, people like Envoy would use the Zim or something, whatever it was called, that would allow you to basically keyboard. Now, the Cronus Zen, we used to use the Cronus in COD back in 2018-ish. But it was not due to the features that the Cronus has. I don't even exactly know all the things that it can do, but it can, I don't know, reduce your recoil and stuff, make you shoot super straight and pump out these interfered with outputs into the PC or the PS5 or whatever instead. Now, back in the day, the Cronus was just used to make a wired connection because we had issues with the PS4s when there was a big venue with tons of PS4s, tons of controllers, people with their phones all the time. It was interfering, right? So they had to use the Cronus Max, I think it was known as then, to just connect with a wired connection, right, to the PS4. That's why we used to use the Cronus, but nowadays people are using this Cronus Zen thing to basically cheat, right? It's a cheat in a roundabout way. Now, what's interesting is this does happen in COD as well, and this is set to be banned by Battlefield 6, which is pretty interesting. Battlefield 6 is reportedly banning players who are using the Cronus Zen and they're getting messages in-game, because presumably you can probably figure out if the inputs that you'd expect from a controller are getting tampered with. You could probably figure out what they're doing there. So it's interesting they're doing this. Does it mean that COD is going to follow suit? Possibly, right? I mean, we know that Battlefield 6 and COD are at war this year for the audience that they both share to a certain extent. Battlefield, more of a gritty shooter, which probably allows Call of Duty and certainly Black Ops 7 to be a little bit more arcade-like, which many of us preferred back in the day. So we know that the competition should be good for the audience. Maybe COD will follow suit, given that we know that Ricochet is apparently getting better and they're trying all these things to counteract the cheaters. This is something that Battlefield are doing. Maybe COD could follow suit as well. Couple of funny clips I wanted to share. Zinni was going through it over the last couple of days. He did tweet this out, of course, the Boston team from a couple of years ago before Zinni called it a day. TJ was roasting his play in Battlefield 6, and then he also played some chals with Fatty and co, and well, they didn't exactly go to plan. So a couple of clips here to share, and then we will talk about this Kenny situation.
Like, I feel like this should have at least like a 25 at least. Die, motherfucker, die. My God, what the hell is that?
What the fuck were those shots?
Oh! Fatty. Delete the clips, mods.
Don't give me the fucking clip.
Oh, shit!
Oh my God, it's dead.
I just outplayed the fuck out of that kid.
You have no idea
Oh!
how bad
Oh, thank God, I just won that. I gotta
Oh my fucking God!
You have no idea what just happened.
Oh no, no,
You have
no!
no idea what just happened.
Turn on, bro.
Yes.
The rostermania has been a key conversation over the last few days. We know that it's rounding down to a certain extent. We think we know what probably 10 or 11 of the rosters are right now. No confirmations from many of those teams as of yet, and there could still be more to come. Of course, Ravens are the team that we really don't know about. Are they getting combined with another organization? Right now, we don't really know. But what we do know is that the Los Angeles Thieves should be a serious contender again next season. It is one of the surprises to many of this rostermania period that Kenny, after the challenging, to say the very least, year that he had last time out, is now on, one of the best teams in the entire game. Now, this is not a massive surprise, but as we talked about over the last couple of days, Kenny was not necessarily the #1 option here, but he is certainly an option that I think makes an awful lot of sense for exactly what LA Thieves need. But what they've also got to be prepared for is what it's like to play with Kenny. We know how it was on OpTic over the last couple of years when I think Shotzzy reveals that Kenny and Shotzzy would be having arguments. The other guys weren't really contributing one side or the other, and that caused issues, right? Kenny is a very opinionated player. But he recognises that he's not always necessarily right. There is a feeling that in Modern Warfare 3, when OpTic eventually won, Kenny's, let's say, style of play took a little bit of precedence over what maybe Shotzzy wanted to do, and that worked in that style of game. But in Black Ops 6, Kenny's style of play did not seem to be working as well as the way that Shotzzy wanted to approach things, presumably just because of the way the game was. Now, those things can cause friction depending on the type of teammates. Some teammates really like those type of conversations, but we know that in the grand scheme of things, if players are butting heads and the team is still losing, it does tend to result in the team blowing it up at some point, and at least some level of friction. Now, we know that players don't necessarily have to be the best of friends to be on winning teams. Dom was making that point the other day that he's not really expecting Kenny and aBeZy to be best buddies, but that doesn't necessarily matter if the team is playing at a top level. And I think there's a reason why people want to play with Kenny, and there's also a reason why he's had so much success is because he's willing to have these very difficult conversations. But we understand that Ghosty and HyDra, according to Parasite, they also had their fair share of disagreements at the end of last season, and that manifested in Ghosty ended up getting dropped, right? Because, well, one read might be HyDra wasn't happy with Ghosty's individual level and his performance at times, some of his, lackluster performances in big series. And as a result, things got a little bit heated and Ghosty didn't turn up and he eventually gets himself dropped. Many could argue, could a similar thing happen with Kenny, especially if he plays in the way that he did last season? So I think if you're a Thieves player, if you're a Thieves fan, you've got to be aware of what it's like to have Kenny on your team and, well, the pros that can come with that, but also the potential negatives if things don't go to plan and if the team is not as mature as they might be.
Dude, you remember that fight that we had?
There's no way that this guy's gonna
in Vanguard on boat cage and almost fucking blew up our whole team.
No way this guy's gonna expect me.
Which one?
Except when my fucking boys roll up and
wait, what was this one
I
about?
might be in the
Chat, I told you guys we fought all the time.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember the play actually. It was like someone was alive on the street behind P2, like where the tank is at. It was an S&D or something like that. We were arguing about pushing him or planning or something like that. And it lasted like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And almost blew up our whole fucking team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, Cap brought that up on stream. I was talking about it.
It's coming.
Me and Dill against Ken and Cap. They were fucking. Everyone was tweaking. The whole room was losing their minds.
I like that, though, bro. Like, I don't know.
Yep.
Whole room losing their mind. You don't get that no more, bro.
Passion, baby.
How are we losing this game like this?
Chat, I told you guys, bro, we fucking, in that room, bro, it was war sometime, man. But that's what it's supposed to be like.
It's interesting to hear about this story from back in the day in the Vanguard season when, they were really getting into it, they were going at it, and the team nearly blew up over it. We know that Kenny, right? I mean, there's all sorts of talk about this. Kenny and Dashy, they nearly got into a fight. What was it, back in Modern Warfare 19? That was talked about recently. That, I mean, Hitch, it was mentioned on his podcast that, yeah, Ken and Dashy got into it heavily. They nearly threw hands, basically. Muddog even replies here that in Black Ops 4, so even earlier than that, they nearly had a fight with Slasher. He calls it the best team fight ever. So look, it's passion, right? And passion for winning is always a good thing. It may not be, let's say, always manifesting in the best possible way, but we know that Kenny's teams will get intense behind the scenes, and we've seen it in process episodes. I mean, like last year, Kenny and Pred, they got into it a fair little bit. And I think on many levels, that is what it takes to have a winning outfit, but also it does come with its potential consequences, right? Like if you look back at Kenny's career, if you look back at Kenny's history, it's pretty rare that he's on teams for more than a couple of years in a row. And, that may just be coincidence, but if you look at many of the, like Kenny's a top player in terms of what he's accomplished, 2 World Championship rings, all these championships, at least in the CDL era. But if you look at his teams, he's not had that many teammates that he's played with for a significant stretch. Right? If you look at many other of the great players, they were at least on a team for a decent amount of time, especially if they're, you know, considered to be a top player. And Kenny has been a top player even in terms of talent as well. So maybe this is just coincidence, but if you look at Kenny's career, even from, you know, the early days, of course, back in the CWL, everything was all over the place, then franchising happened, so lots of things changed, right? But especially that team, they went into Cold War, then into Vanguards, they formed the Vanguard team that eventually won champs. The year after, they were still good, but not good enough. Octane retired and the team blew it up. And then OpTic, right? Kenny joins OpTic after a lackluster year he had in Modern Warfare 2 with Vanguard, or with the Thieves Vanguard team that carried over. Then he was on OpTic for a year, they have lots of success, then things turned down in the second season. So it is a trend with Kenny that the teams that he joins, they tend to do well in the first year. But then the second year, things tend to, you know, sometimes come to the surface. And I think this is, you know, this is the yin and the yang, I suppose, of playing with Kenny in certain respects, right? When you get a lot from having Kenny on your team, he will push you to be the absolute best. But if the team isn't winning, then that friction can sometimes manifest in different ways. And, well, I think you've got to be prepared for that. And I think that's what Kenny's getting across here. Because Kenny is not going to change his approach for anyone, which I respect very heavily. And I also, I'm not like, this isn't necessarily a criticism of Kenny, what I'm saying here. It's more just an observation. I think you get one, you know, the rough comes with the smooth, as it were. With Kenny, he is not going to back down to anyone. If HyDra tells him, no, we should be playing like this, and I'm HyDra, right, like I'm your best player, Kenny doesn't care about that. Kenny is trying to figure out, okay, what actually was the best decision in this moment, and I'm not just going to listen to you because you're the chosen one, or like, Kenny doesn't care, right? So, and I think that could be a very positive force, but also, you know, we understand that if HyDra and Ghosty had some disagreements that eventually led to the team blowing up, look, will I expect to look back on this LA Thieves team in 3 years and they're still teaming together? Like, no, I think the chances of that are very slim. I think they could have a lot of success this upcoming season. The year after, dunno, right? Like, again, I think that's the question with this iteration, is that I don't see this team before necessarily lasting for an especially long time. You know, with the OpTic quartet that were formed at the end of last season, I could see them sticking together for longer, right? Potentially. But Thieves, I'm not so convinced. Does that take away from their potential in terms of success? Not at all, I don't think. But, you know, there is a pattern here, right, with Kenny's career. But also, I think the main question is, can Kenny perform at the level necessary to maintain that spot over time, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're nade shot and you need to listen to one of your players over the other, are you listening to HyDra or are you listening to Kenny, right? It is a debate there, because Kenny's a Hall of Famer for the LA Thieves, but if HyDra's stopping 1.2s every series, then things can start to get a little interesting. So, look, I think Kenny can actually be a great fit for what this team needs. Looking back on this in a couple of years, I could definitely see this Thieves team having a lot of success this upcoming season, and then we might get a similar-ish pattern continuing. But intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. I just think of the Rostermania, not all these are confirmed, of course, but some of these are still just theory, some of these are still just rumours, but I definitely think that Kenny to Thieves will go down to many as one of the surprises of this roster period, and with that in mind, and with, well, clearly some of the heated discussions that Kenny's had over the last few years, it'll be very fascinating to see what happens there internally. If the team is all on the same page about trying to win, even if they're having very strong, tense conversations and, you know, at times warfare behind the scenes between the players, then that could be a very positive thing, but it would also take the entire team having that mentality. But maybe that's what it takes if they want to win. I mean, they've all got a lot to prove, right? I mean, HyDra, he's had a great couple of individual years, but he's still stuck on 1 ring, and Scrap's stuck on 0 rings. aBeZy wants to prove that he was the better duo than Simp was, right? So there's a lot of reasons why they could get on the same page. I guess we'll see what time says on that. But intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Likely this will be the only video of the day. I might do a second one today, but given that it's October now, not that much is going to be happening until the game launches. There's still plenty of Rostermania questions to answer, and then there's going to be some drama happening for sure, but I'll probably end up doing like 10 videos a week rather than 14. So on some days there'll be 2 videos, some days there'll be 1. That's probably how I'll do it. There's plenty to talk about in Valorant and F1 as well on the other channel. So intrigued to your thoughts as always on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.